Maknae, who was known to be the quietest at the beginning of BTS's debut, is now the main reason why HYBE calls him the most important asset in the group's history. But this great recognition turned out to be not without a price, because as soon as the news came out, many inside and outside the group began to react. Some were amazed, others did not accept. The story isn't just about sales figures or popularity. It's about how one individual can change the future direction of a company. And even the relationship between 7 people who once vowed to walk together, it all starts with data. HYBE, like other global companies, never takes decisions without concrete evidence. Behind their glass walls are thousands of internal reports, promotion data, digital engagement, and global streaming charts. Of all of them, one pattern is undeniable. Every time Jungkook releases content, whether solo, collaboration, or simply appearing on stage, the numbers soar beyond prediction. From Spotify, YouTube, to merchandise sales, Jungkook's name has a domino effect. In a leaked annual report among investors, Jungkook was referred to as the key driver of fan economy, a term that means simple but has great impact. He is the center of BTS's global fandom economy, but the most shocking moment occurred when HYBE summoned Jungkook alone to a large meeting room upstairs. Without the other members present, Jungkook sat face to face with the board of directors. In front of her, a large screen displays a video montage of her career, from trainee days to 7, Standing Next to You, and Calvin Klein ads that rocked the fashion world. After the video ended, CEO HYBE looked at Jungkook and said slowly but surely, "You're not just a part of BTS. You're the reason BTS has stayed alive in the global market." It sounded like a compliment, but to some outside the room, especially among the members, it was news that stirred up mixed feelings. No one doubted Jungkook's hard work. Everyone knew he was the most disciplined worker, the one who came the earliest and came home the last. But when the media started writing headlines like HYBE confirms Jungkook is BTS's main asset, the fandom atmosphere began to change. On Twitter, fans from different countries are arguing, is HYBE focusing too much on Jungkook and forgetting about the balance of the group? On the other hand, some say, this is the reality of the industry, that every group, no matter how big, has one key figure at its core. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, rumors say some members feel eliminated. Suga mentioned artistic justice in one of his podcast interviews. RM, the leader, chose a diplomatic tone, saying that each member had a different role, but even the public can sense the widening distance between them. In the world of Korean entertainment, every word and expression can turn into big speculation. However, all these rumors did not change one fact. HYBE had a logical reason. When they refer to Jungkook as their most important asset, they speak the language of business. He is a figure who brings commercial value, global appeal, and brand continuity. Even in the financial statements, when BTS's name was written, the footnote section explained that Jungkook's solo contribution significantly influenced the international growth trend. That is, in corporate terms, Jungkook is not just an artist, he is the center of economic gravity. However, what makes this story so interesting is not just the numbers, but the emotional dynamics behind it. In a backstage interview, Jungkook once said, "I never thought about being the most important. I just want to do my best." That simple sentence describes the burden he carries. Being the center of attention is not a choice, but a consequence. On the other hand, the public sees HYBE as taking a big risk. Focusing on one star means narrowing the collective space of the group. Analysts of the Korean entertainment industry even warned, relying too much on one individual can backfire if the balance of the group is disturbed. But HYBE seems to be ready. They set a strategy for Jungkook to remain a global face without completely separating BTS's identity. Advertising campaigns, brand partnerships, and international media schedules are all programmed with precision. When Jungkook appeared on Jimmy Fallon's show, the entire promotional narrative was directed not just at him, but also as a representation of BTS Global Era 2. However, behind the scenes, a shadow of unspoken feelings remained. Some longtime fans wrote on the forums that inter-member interactions felt more awkward. Some say Jimin looks more silent, Taehyung seems to keep his distance, and RM is more careful in every statement. All may be just perception, but in the world of fandom, perception is often more powerful than reality. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, the American media wrote an article titled HYBE bets everything on Jungkook. And that's the crux of the story, a huge gamble between the group's idealism and the reality of global business. Jungkook himself does not seem to want to be the center of controversy. He continued to work as usual, rehearsing, recording, performing at charity concerts, and even joined in greeting fans through a short, quiet live. But the world around him has changed. It is no longer maknae, but rather asset. And beneath the gleam of the spotlight lies a dilemma that can never be fully explained between responsibility and guilt, between love for the group and pressure from the label. HYBE may have an obvious reason, but for fans and members alike, it still leaves a big question mark. Does being the most important always mean being the happiest? Amid the roar of the global entertainment scene, Jungkook continues to move like an invisible magnet. Each of his appearances, whether on television screens, concert stages, or social media, seem to ignite thousands of sparks of energy throughout the fandom. Not only sales figures are climbing, but also the cultural influence he brings. From the fashion trends she wears to her little gestures on stage, everything is instantly recorded and repeated thousands of times on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. HYBE analysts note that Jungkook's digital engagement far surpasses the group's average, even compared to other BTS peers. But what's interesting is how the group's internal reactions subtly changed. There is no open conflict, but there is a sense of veiled competition, a sense of wanting to show that they are no less important. In the rehearsal room, the dynamics were felt. When Jungkook leads vocal sessions or emphasizes choreography, the other members' eyes look more alert, sometimes a little anxious, but also full of respect. There is a delicate balance between admiration and jealousy. Fans noted these moments, from interactions on stage to facial expressions during the live broadcast. Everyone saw, and the media quickly panned out, adding to the dramatization that makes this story feel like a real drama series that never stops. On the other hand, HYBE's strategy also looks increasingly complex. They put Jungkook in a position where he could be the center of attention without really reducing the role of the other members. Every interview, commercial, and public appearance is designed to highlight Jungkook's individual excellence while reminding the world that BTS remains a solid unit. However, this balance is not without risk. Some internal managers realize that too much spotlight on one member can create psychological stress. Jungkook himself, despite looking calm, faced a heavy emotional burden. He knows every action and smile can make international headlines, and every move can spark public comment that isn't always positive. There were nights when Jungkook could be seen sitting alone in the rehearsal room, listening to recordings of previous performances, adjusting each note, and repeating choreographed movements over and over again. It's not just dedication, it's the way he refrains from pressure coming from his own label, fans, and even peers. The phenomenon also opens a broader discussion about how the Korean entertainment industry is dealing with young stars who are growing into global icons. In a partially leaked internal HYBE report, it is mentioned that this kind of management model is not only financially beneficial, but also tests the limits of interpersonal relationships. That is, Jungkook is not only a commercial asset, but also the central point of a management experiment that challenges the entire dynamics of the group. When the international public saw Jungkook smiling on stage, they only saw his charm and extraordinary talent. But behind it, there is a long process full of perseverance, sacrifice, and consequences that sometimes creates tension between people who used to always walk together. Moments like this make fans all over the world feel the drama, as if they are part of a growing story. Discussions in online communities, memes circulating, even fan fiction theories, all become a reflection of how one individual can be the center of gravity in the complex world of global entertainment. Meanwhile, BTS members continue to carry out their respective activities with high professionalism, maintaining a balance between supporting each other and individual ambitions. There are exercises that they do together, but there is also a personal space that must be respected. All this creates a unique atmosphere, a harmonious collaboration as well as a subtle competition, where every achievement of Jungkook is received with a reasonable mixture of pride and a hint of envy. HYBE, on the other hand, continues to monitor the impact of each strategy, adjusting schedules and projects to ensure Jungkook remains a key asset without damaging the dynamics of the group. Data analysis, market research, and executive meetings are part of their daily lives, as one wrong move can trigger a wave of global criticism. This story, in the end, is not simply about who is more important or more successful. It's a story about the pressures, sacrifices, and complexities of relationships behind the scenes of the glittering world of entertainment. Jungkook may be called BTS's most important asset by HYBE, but what makes him interesting is how he, the other members, the label, and the fans are all entangled in a network of interactions full of emotion, strategy, and hope. Every smile, every tone, every step of the way, it's not just entertainment. It's part of a living narrative that's being written before the eyes of the world, and everyone watching from Seoul to New York finds themselves unable to stop following the story, swept up in a real drama that never stops developing. Jungkook stays calm, keeps working, keeps smiling, and remains the focal point of a story much bigger than himself, a phenomenon that proves that sometimes one individual can change the course of a group's and an industry's history, and at the same time pose a deep emotional dilemma for everyone who has been with him on this journey. Over time, Jungkook's influence on BTS and HYBE began to be seen on levels previously unthinkable. On the concert stage, his every little move gets a special camera spotlight, not just because he's popular, but because HYBE's data shows audience engagement increases dramatically when Jungkook is in focus. International fans soon caught on to this pattern. Short videos with Jungkook's hashtag suddenly went viral, comments from around the world poured in, and streaming numbers soared every time he performed. But behind the spotlight, BTS's internal atmosphere has become increasingly complex. There were moments at rehearsals when J-Hope gave input in a more serious tone. Taehyung seemed to be paying attention to Jungkook more intensely than usual, and even Jin, who is usually calm, seemed to hold back his expression as the camera panned Jungkook in the rehearsal session. All this gives rise to an invisible dynamic, a mixture of respect, admiration, and a slight tension that can only be felt by those who are really nearby. HYBE, on the other hand, continues to leverage digital data to maximize Jungkook's impact. Every social media post is analyzed down to the smallest detail. Upload time, captions, even camera angles. This strategy makes Jungkook not only a global idol, but also a brand icon and an economic asset that can be measured with precision. However, even though the numbers and data support Jungkook's position, the emotional aspect still cannot be ignored. Some BTS members admitted in internal interviews that they felt a hidden pressure not just to keep up, but also to keep their own identity amid the spotlight being so focused on one person. This gave rise to deep reflections on the meaning of togetherness, equality, and how a group can remain solid when the label pays more attention to one individual. On the side of fans, this phenomenon creates a wide spectrum of reactions. Much of the global fan base celebrates Jungkook as a symbol of success and dedication, while some longtime fans feel that excessive attention could change the balance of the group. Online forums, comments on YouTube, and the fandom community discuss Jungkook's every move, sometimes with awe, sometimes with skepticism. Meanwhile, HYBE's strategy continues to evolve. They put Jungkook in international collaborations, solo projects, and global campaigns with precision, keeping his presence fresh without creating too much tension. All of this planning is not just for short-term gain. HYBE is positioning Jungkook as the global face of BTS, while ensuring the entire group remains relevant in a competitive market. However, this burden is not light. Jungkook remains a man behind the image of the most important asset. He faced pressure from many directions: labels, fans, media, and internal expectations. Behind the scenes, he often spends nights rehearsing, reviewing recordings, and making sure his performance is flawless. The smile seen on camera is only a small part of the true dedication. The story also opens a broader discussion about the Korean entertainment industry and how young stars are faced with such a huge global responsibility. Jungkook is more than just an artist. He represents a phenomenon where one individual can influence the entire ecosystem, from group performance, label strategy, to international fandom trends. Even industry analysts noted that Jungkook's case became an important study for modern talent management, combining digital data, branding strategies, and group emotional dynamics. Ultimately, the narrative is not simply about who is most important or who is most successful. It's a story about balance, responsibility, and the pressures that come along with global success. Jungkook remains standing in the spotlight, continuing his dedicated journey, while the world continues to watch, analyze, and sometimes speculate on what is really going on behind the scenes. This phenomenon proves that in the modern entertainment world, a single individual can be the center of gravity that changes the direction of groups, labels, and even international fandom culture, while posing a deep emotional dilemma for all involved. And while Jungkook continues to walk quietly, the world can't stop talking about him, because behind every smile and every tone lies a story of hard work, strategy, and impact that goes far beyond the stage.